My name is Alessia Moretti, and I'm 42 years old. I live in Florence, Italy, the birthplace of the Renaissance, the city where Michelangelo carved David, where Leonardo painted, where art became immortal. I grew up in a small apartment near Ponte Vecchio. My father was a frame maker. My mother worked at the Uffizi Gallery gift shop. We weren't wealthy, but we were surrounded by beauty. Every day, I walked past masterpieces that had survived 500 years. At 5 years old, I drew my first copy of a Botticelli. Venus emerging from the shell. I used colored pencils on notebook paper. My mother hung it on our refrigerator. "Bellissima," she said. "You have a gift." At 7, I started visiting the Uffizi Gallery after school. My mother would finish her shift, and we'd walk through the galleries together. She'd tell me stories about the paintings, not the official museum stories. Her own stories, about the artists, their rivalries, their love affairs, their secrets. Art isn't about painting pretty pictures, she told me. It's about truth, about showing people something they've never seen before, something that makes them feel alive. I wanted that. I wanted to create something that made people feel alive. At 10, I started taking art classes at a local studio. The teacher, Professore Gallo, was 70 years old. He'd studied at the Accademia di Belle Arti. He was strict, demanding. He made students cry regularly. But he saw something in me. "Alessia, you have technical skill," he said after my first month. "Your lines are clean. Your proportions are accurate. But skill isn't enough. You need to understand the masters. Not just copy them, understand them. How they mixed their pigments, how they prepared their canvases, how they thought." He gave me a challenge: recreate a Caravaggio. Not copy it, recreate it. Use the same techniques Caravaggio used in 1600, the same materials, the same methods. I spent 3 months researching. I learned how to make egg tempera, how to prepare gesso panels, how to use chiaroscuro, the dramatic contrast between light and dark that made Caravaggio's paintings so powerful. I painted The Calling of St. Matthew, not a copy. A recreation, as if I were Caravaggio, standing in Rome in 1600, painting for the first time. Professore Gallo studied it for 20 minutes. Then he said, "This is museum quality. If I showed this to an expert without context, they would believe it was 17th century. That's not a compliment to your skill. That's a warning. You have the ability to deceive. Be careful what you do with that." I was 13 years old. At 18, I applied to the Accademia di Belle Arti di Firenze, the most prestigious art school in Italy. Founded in 1563, Michelangelo was one of the founding members. If you wanted to be a serious artist, you studied there. I submitted my portfolio. 15 paintings, landscapes, portraits, still lifes, my best work. 2 months later, I received a letter. Accepted. My parents cried. My father took a second job to help pay tuition. My mother gave me her grandmother's gold bracelet to sell if I needed money. "Follow your dream," she said. The academia was everything I'd hoped for. Studios with north-facing windows, access to Renaissance-era materials and techniques, professors who'd trained under masters, students from around the world, all desperate to become great artists. I thrived. My technical skills were among the best in my year. I could paint in any style: Renaissance, Baroque, Impressionism, Contemporary. I understood color theory, composition, perspective, anatomy. But something was missing. In my 3rd year, we had a visiting critic, Sofia Benedetti. She was 50 years old, one of Italy's most respected art critics. She'd made and broken careers with her reviews. She walked through our studio, looking at each student's work. When she reached mine, she stopped, studied my painting, a still life with fruit and flowers, done in the style of Dutch Golden Age masters. "Technically perfect," she said. "You've mastered the techniques of Vermeer. The composition is flawless. The lighting is exquisite," I smiled. This was high praise. Then she said, "But it's empty. There's no soul, no voice. You're so focused on mastering technique that you've forgotten to say anything. This painting could have been done by anyone. There's nothing of you in it." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Art isn't about perfecting someone else's vision," she continued. "It's about discovering your own. Right now, you're a very skilled copyist, but you're not an artist. Not yet." The rest of the critique was a blur. After Sophia left, I went back to my apartment and cried. For hours. She was right. I could paint like Caravaggio, like Vermeer, like anyone, but when I tried to paint in my own style, I didn't know what to say. I didn't have a voice. I spent the next year trying to find it. I experimented with abstract expressionism, minimalism, conceptual art, pop art. Nothing felt authentic. Nothing felt like me. At 22, I graduated from the academia. My degree said Master of Fine Arts, but I felt like a fraud. After graduation, I needed money. My student loans were substantial. My parents had sacrificed to send me to the academia. I needed to support myself. I got a job at a restoration studio in Florence, Restauro d'Arte Fiorentino. They specialized in restoring damaged Renaissance paintings for museums and private collectors. The work was meticulous, cleaning centuries of dirt and varnish, repairing cracks, filling in areas where paint had flaked away. It required deep knowledge of historical techniques and materials. I was good at it. Very good. I could match pigments perfectly. My brushwork was invisible. When I restored a painting, you couldn't tell where the original ended, and my work began. One day, a man came to the studio. Damien Chevallier. French, mid-40s, expensive suit, confident. He owned a gallery in Paris, Galerie Chevallier, specializing in old master paintings. He watched me work for an hour. I was restoring a 17th century Dutch painting. The original artist was unknown, a minor painter from Amsterdam. But the technique was similar to Vermeer's. "You're very talented," Damien said. "Thank you." That brushwork. The way you match the original, I've never seen anything like it. I studied at the academia, and I've spent years analyzing Renaissance techniques. "How much do they pay you here?" 25,000 euros a year, he smiled. "I have a proposition. I need someone to create, let's call them study pieces, paintings in the style of old masters. Not copies of existing works, new compositions, as if the original artist had painted something we'd never seen before. Study pieces?" I was confused. "You mean forgeries?" "I prefer unattributed works in the style of. My clients are wealthy. They want to own pieces that look and feel like old masters, but they can't afford real ones. A Vermeer sells for $50 million, but a painting that looks like a Vermeer, that could sell for $50,000. Everyone wins. The client gets a beautiful painting. You get paid well, and I facilitate the transaction. That's fraud, only if we claim it's real. I never do. I sell them as attributed to the school of Vermeer, or in the manner of Caravaggio. It's all legal. And I'll pay you 100,000 euros per painting. 100,000 euros. That was 4 years of salary at the restoration studio. I should have said no. Should have walked away, but I didn't. I said, "What do you need?" Damien's first commission was simple. "Give me a Vermeer." Same style, same period, but a composition he never painted. A woman reading a letter by a window. Northern light. His signature color palette. Ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, lead white. I spent 2 months researching. I studied every Vermeer painting in existence. Only 34 survived. I analyzed his technique, how he built up layers of paint, how he used natural ultramarine, ground from lapis lazuli, how he created luminous skin tones, how he painted light reflecting off surfaces. I sourced period-appropriate materials. 17th century Dutch canvas, historically accurate pigments, rabbit skin glue for sizing, lead white ground. Everything had to be authentic to the period. I painted a woman in a yellow dress reading a letter by a window. Morning light streaming in. A table with a blue and white ceramic bowl. A map on the wall behind her. The composition was pure Vermeer. Quiet, intimate, luminous. When I finished, I looked at it and felt a strange mix of pride and shame. This was the best painting I'd ever made. It was technically flawless, historically accurate, beautiful, but it wasn't mine. It was Vermeer's. Or rather, it was what Vermeer would have painted if he'd lived to make a 35th work. I delivered it to Damien in Paris. He studied it for 30 minutes. Took it to a back room with special lighting. Examined it with a magnifying glass. "This is extraordinary," he said. "It's perfect. The craquelure, the fine cracks in the paint, they're exactly right for a painting this age. How did you do that?" I forced the aging process. Baked it in a low oven. Used historically accurate materials that crack the same way, and the canvas, 17th century Dutch linen, I bought it from a dealer in Amsterdam. It came from a period tapestry. Damien smiled. You're even better than I thought. I'll give you 150,000 euros for this, and I have 5 more commissions for you. What will you sell it for? Does it matter? I want to know. 250,000 euros. To a private collector in Geneva. He knows it's not a real Vermeer, but he wants something that captures the beauty of Vermeer's work, and this does. Everyone is happy. He handed me an envelope with 150,000 euros in cash. That was the moment I should have stopped. Should have realized where this path led, but the money was intoxicating. And deeper than that, the validation. Someone valued my technical mastery enough to pay this much, even if it wasn't for my own vision, even if it was for my ability to channel someone else's. Over the next 5 years, I painted for Damien regularly. Vermeer, Rembrandt, Caravaggio, Dutch Golden Age still lifes. Baroque religious paintings, Italian Renaissance portraits. Each one was in the style of, or attributed to the school of. Each one sold for 10 to 20 times what Damien paid me. I made good money, not wealthy, but comfortable. I bought a nicer apartment, sent money to my parents, saved. But something was eating at me. I was 30 years old, a decade out of art school, and I still hadn't created anything that was truly mine. In 2018, when I was 35, Damien invited me to Paris. I want to show you something, he said. He took me to his private gallery, a converted 19th century mansion in the Marais district. Inside was his personal collection. 50 paintings, Renaissance, Baroque, Dutch Golden Age. This is incredible, I said. These must be worth millions. 200 million, he said proudly. I've been collecting for 20 years. This Rembrandt, I bought it at auction for 15 million. This Caravaggio, 18 million. This Vermeer, 45 million. I walked through the gallery, studying each painting. The brushwork, the materials, the compositions. And then I realized. Damien, I said slowly, some of these are mine. He smiled. 12 to be exact. What? The Vermeer with the woman reading, the Caravaggio of Saint Jerome, the Rembrandt self-portrait, the Dutch still life with the lobster. All yours, but you said you sold those. To private collectors. I did sell them. To myself. I bought them into my collection. And I had them authenticated by experts I work with. You mean experts you bribed. I prefer experts who understand the nuances of attribution. These aren't forgeries, Alessia. They're paintings in the style of the masters. But with the right provenance, the right documentation, they become indistinguishable from the real thing. I felt sick. You're selling forgeries as authentic works. I'm selling art. The buyers are happy. The paintings are beautiful. What does it matter if they were painted in 1650 or 2015? If the quality is the same, it matters because it's fraud. Don't be naive. The art world is built on fraud. Attributions change all the time. Authentic paintings get downgraded to workshop of or school of. Paintings considered copies turn out to be originals. It's all a game, and you and I are very good players. I'm done. I won't paint for you anymore. Damien's smile vanished. Alessia, think carefully. You've made over €1 million from me. You've been complicit in this for 8 years. If you go to the authorities, you'll go to prison too. For longer than me, probably. I'm a respected gallerist. You're just a forger. Then I won't go to the authorities. But I'm done. Fine, he said coldly. Walk away. But let me tell you something. You're a brilliant technician, maybe the best I've ever seen. But you'll never be a real artist. Real artists have vision, voice, something to say. You're just very good at copying other people. That's all you'll ever be. Those words hit harder than anything else, because deep down I knew he was right. I left Paris that day, flew back to Florence, and cried for 3 days. I was 35 years old. I'd spent over a decade creating art that wasn't mine, facilitating fraud, getting rich from deception, and I had nothing to show for it. No career. No artistic identity. Nothing. Sophia Benedetti's words came back to me. You're not an artist. Not yet. I still wasn't, after all these years. I was still just a copyist. For 3 months, I did nothing. I didn't paint, didn't draw, didn't even visit museums. I thought about leaving Florence, maybe moving to Rome or Milan, starting over in a different field. but something kept pulling me back to my studio. That empty room with north-facing windows. My brushes, my paints, my blank canvases. One night I had a dream. I was in the Uffizi Gallery, standing in front of Botticelli's Birth of Venus. But in the dream, the painting was empty. Just a blank canvas in an ornate frame, and I heard Sofia Benedetti's voice. Fill it with your truth. I woke up at 4 a.m., went to my studio, stood in front of a blank canvas, and I started to paint. Not Vermeer, not Caravaggio, not anyone else, just me. I painted for 16 hours straight. No plan, no composition. Just instinct, color, emotion, pain, anger, shame. Everything I'd been feeling for the past decade. When I finished, I stepped back and looked at it. It was terrible, crude, amateurish. Nothing like the technical perfection I'd achieved in my forgeries, but it was mine. I started again. Another canvas, another 16-hour session. It was better, still rough, but more coherent, more intentional. I painted every day for 6 months. Sometimes good, sometimes terrible, but always mine. Nobody saw this work. I didn't photograph it, didn't post it online, didn't show it to anyone. This wasn't about external validation. This was about finding my voice. After 35 years, I was finally discovering who I was as an artist. The work was dark, psychological, influenced by my years as a forger. Themes of authenticity, identity, truth, deception, beauty and fraud, original and copy. I painted split faces, half Renaissance perfection, half abstract chaos. I painted empty frames. I painted hands creating and destroying simultaneously. I painted mirrors reflecting different realities. It was messy, raw, uncomfortable. Nothing like the polished beauty of my forgeries, but it was honest. After 18 months of painting in isolation, I had 37 canvases. My new body of work. My first true artistic statement. I didn't know what to do with them. I couldn't show them in Florence. Too many people knew me as a restoration artist, or, worse, whispered that I was a forger. I couldn't show them in Paris. Damien would recognize my work immediately. Then I had an idea. I'd show them anonymously. Under a pseudonym. No photographs. No biography. Just the work. Let the paintings speak for themselves. I chose the name Ghost, a reference to my years creating art that lived in someone else's name. I contacted a small gallery in Berlin, Galerie Neuwerk. They specialized in emerging contemporary artists. I sent them digital images of 5 paintings. No artist statement, no CV, just the paintings and a note. Artist prefers to remain anonymous. Work speaks for itself. The gallery owner, Klaus Hoffmann, emailed back 3 days later. These are extraordinary, dark, compelling. We'd like to show them. Can you send more images? I sent him images of 15 more paintings. He called me. I don't care who you are. This work needs to be seen. We want to give you a solo show. 3 months. Full gallery. Are you interested? I was terrified, but I said yes. The show opened in September 2020. Ghost. Between Truth and Beauty. 20 paintings. No artist name, no biography, just a gallery statement. Ghost explores themes of authenticity, identity, and the nature of art itself. The artist chooses to remain anonymous, allowing the work to exist independent of persona or biography. I didn't attend the opening. I watched from my apartment in Florence as Klaus sent me updates. Packed gallery. Critics are here. This is generating buzz. The reviews came fast. Art Forum. Ghost's work interrogates the very foundations of artistic authenticity. These paintings ask uncomfortable questions. What makes art real? Is technical mastery enough? Can beauty exist alongside deception? Art Review. The most compelling new voice in contemporary art. Ghost's identity may be unknown, but their artistic vision is crystalline. Freeze. A meditation on originality in an age of reproduction. Ghost has created something genuinely new. 3 paintings sold in the first week. For 20,000 euros each, Klaus called ecstatic. We need more work. Do you have more? I did. I'd been painting continuously. My studio was full of new canvases. Over the next year, I had shows in Berlin, London, and New York. Always as ghost, always anonymous. The mystery fueled interest. Who was this artist? Where were they from? What was their story? Art collectors started competing for my work. Paintings that sold for €20,000 in 2020 were reselling for €200,000 in 2021. Museums started acquiring pieces. The Tate bought one. The Museum of Modern Art bought two. And through all of it, I remained invisible. Just ghost, an artistic voice without a face. In 2022, when I was 40 years old, I received an email from Klaus. Christie's wants to do a special auction. Ghost, a retrospective. They're proposing a single artist evening sale. This is unprecedented for a living artist who's been exhibiting for less than 3 years. Are you interested? I said yes. The auction was scheduled for November 2022 in New York. Christie's would offer 15 of my paintings, 10 new works plus 5 early pieces from the Berlin show. But I had something else in mind. 2 weeks before the auction, I sent Christie's a statement. They published it in the auction catalog. Ghost exists in the space between truth and deception. For 15 years, I created art in other people's names. I painted like Vermeer, Rembrandt, Caravaggio. My technical mastery was so complete that my forgeries hang in museums and private collections, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But those paintings weren't mine. They were ghosts, beautiful, perfect, and empty. The work you see in this auction is mine. My voice, my vision, my truth. I am reclaiming my identity. I am becoming visible. And I am revealing something the art world doesn't want to acknowledge. Some of the most valuable paintings in existence are forgeries, including several in the collection of Damien Chevallier, one of Paris's most prestigious galleries. I didn't name specific paintings. I didn't provide proof, just the accusation, the provocation. The art world erupted. After my Christie's statement, chaos ensued. Museums launched investigations. Private collectors demanded authentication reviews. Insurance companies panicked. Art experts were called in to re-examine works, and Damien Chevalier's collection was at the center of the storm. He issued a statement. These accusations are baseless. My collection has been thoroughly authenticated by leading experts. This is a publicity stunt by an attention-seeking artist. But doubt had been planted. And doubt is poison in the art world. Christie's auction went ahead as planned. It was the most watched art auction in years. Bidding was fierce. Not just for the paintings, but for the story. Who was Ghost? Were the forgery claims real? My paintings sold for a total of $12 million. The highest price was $2.8 million, for a large canvas titled The Forgers. Confession. A self-portrait where half my face was Renaissance perfection and half was abstract. Destruction. After the auction, I did something I'd never done. I agreed to be interviewed. By the New York Times, in person, with photographs. I met the journalist Rebecca Chen at a cafe in Florence. It was the first time anyone had seen my face in connection with Ghost. Why reveal yourself now? She asked. Because I'm done hiding. For 15 years, my art existed in other people's names. For 2 years, my art existed with no name at all. Now I want it to exist with my name. I'm Alessia Moretti. I'm Ghost. And I'm a forger turned artist. Can you prove you created forgeries in Damien Chevalier's collection? Yes, I have photographs, documentation, materials analysis. And I can identify each painting I created by techniques only the original artist would know. Hidden signatures in the brushwork, specific pigment mixtures, deliberate mistakes that look like age-related damage but are actually intentional marks. Why confess? Because I want those paintings to be recognized for what they are, modern masterpieces. I don't want them destroyed or hidden. I want them in museums with proper attribution. Alessia Moretti, in the style of Vermeer, 2015. They're still beautiful. Still valuable. Just honest. The interview published in December 2022. It went viral. Millions of readers. The art world was in crisis. Within weeks, forensic art experts descended on Damien's collection. They used X-ray fluorescence, radiocarbon dating, pigment analysis, infrared reflectography, every scientific tool available, and they found my hidden signatures, marks I'd deliberately embedded in the paintings years ago, not visible to the naked eye, but there if you knew where to look. In the Vermeer of the woman reading a letter, I'd mixed a modern synthetic pigment, invented in 1995, into a tiny corner that would only show up under UV light. In the Caravaggio of Saint Jerome, I'd painted my initials, AM, in microscopic letters in the saint's scroll. In the Rembrandt self-portrait, I'd used a canvas from 1998 that would date, correctly under radiocarbon, testing for anything claiming to be modern. 12. Paintings in Damien's collection were confirmed as my work, Forgeries, painted. Between 2013 and 2018, their authenticated value before the revelation. 187 million, their actual value. Whatever someone would pay for Alessia Moretti, contemporary artist, painting in historical styles. Damien's collection collapsed. His reputation was destroyed. Lawsuits flooded in, from buyers, insurers, museums. He'd sold forgeries as authentic works. That was fraud. Criminal fraud. In March 2023, Damien Chevallier was arrested in Paris, charged with art fraud, conspiracy, money laundering. His gallery was seized, his assets frozen, his life's work destroyed, and I waited for my arrest. Surely I'd be charged too. Conspiracy, creating forgeries, facilitating fraud, but something unexpected happened. The museums that owned my forgeries faced a choice: destroy them, hide them, or display them. The Louvre owned the Vermeer of the woman reading. After my confession, they could have removed it, destroyed it, pretended it never existed. Instead, they did something radical. In April 2023, the Louvre held a press conference. The director, Marie-Christine Delacroix, stood in front of my painting. "This work," she said, "is not a 17th century Vermeer. It is a 21st century Alessia Moretti, and it is staying in our collection because it is a masterpiece, not despite being a forgery, but because of what it represents, the pinnacle of technical mastery in service of artistic tradition. Alessia Moretti has done something extraordinary. She has created works that are indistinguishable from old masters. That is not a crime. That is genius. We will now display this painting with its true attribution." Alessia Moretti, B. 1982, Woman Reading a Letter, 2015, in the style of Johannes Vermeer. It belongs in this museum. Not as a Vermeer, but as a Moretti. Other museums followed. The Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, the National Gallery in London, the Met in New York. They all kept my forgeries, reattributed them, displayed them proudly, and something astonishing happened. The paintings became more valuable, not less. Because I'd proven something, I could paint like the masters. And now I could paint like myself. I was both a perfect technician and an original voice. Art collectors went wild. My new paintings, the Ghost series, sold for millions. But people also wanted my historical style work. Commissions flooded in. "Can you paint me a Vermeer? With proper attribution? I want an Alessia Moretti original in the style of Vermeer." I was creating a new category: contemporary historical paintings. Modern works in historical styles, honest about their origins, celebrated for their mastery. As for criminal charges, I was never prosecuted. My lawyer argued that I'd created study pieces that Damien misrepresented. I'd been a paid artist, not a willing conspirator. And my public confession, my choice to reveal the truth, demonstrated intent to correct the fraud, not perpetuate it. Damien wasn't so lucky. In September 2023, he was convicted of fraud, sentenced to 7 years in prison. His gallery was sold to pay restitution. His reputation was permanently destroyed. The man who told me I'd never be a real artist was now in prison. And my paintings hung in the world's greatest museums. Chapter 12, The Retrospective. In October 2024, the Guggenheim Museum in New York announced a major retrospective. Alessia Moretti, Between Forgery and Truth. The show would include my early forgeries, reattributed, my Ghost series, contemporary work, new paintings combining historical technique with contemporary themes, documentation of my forgery process, video interviews about authenticity, identity, and artistic truth. It would be the first major museum retrospective for a living artist who'd confessed to forgery. Controversial, provocative, unprecedented. I flew to New York for the opening, my first public appearance as myself, not as Ghost, not as a forger, but as Alessia Moretti, artist. The museum was packed. Art critics, collectors, historians, students, journalists, and my parents who'd flown from Florence. They'd never seen my real work, only the forgeries I'd hidden from them for years. I walked through the gallery with my mother. She stopped in front of my Vermeer, the woman reading a letter. "This is yours?" she asked. "Yes, I painted it 8 years ago. I was paid 150,000 euros. Damien sold it as an authentic Vermeer for 45 million. It's beautiful, but it's not mine." I was channeling Vermeer. She pointed to a painting from my Ghost series, a fractured self-portrait, dark, raw, honest. "And this? This is mine." She studied both paintings, then said, "Both are yours, Alessia. The technical mastery is yours. The beauty is yours. One shows what you learned. The other shows what you became. Neither is fake." "Both are real," I cried, because she was right. For years I'd thought of my forgeries as shameful. Evidence of my lack of authentic voice. But they weren't. They were proof of my dedication to craft, my respect for tradition, my ability to master techniques that had been refined over centuries. And my ghost work wasn't a rejection of that mastery. It was an evolution. Taking everything I'd learned and using it to say something new, I was both. The forger and the artist, the technician and the visionary, the ghost and the voice. After the Guggenheim retrospective, I returned to Florence. The show had been a massive success, 500,000 visitors in 3 months. Reviews were ecstatic. Museums around the world wanted to host the traveling version. I was now famous, rich, validated, everything I'd dreamed of as a young art student. But something still bothered me. I'd destroyed. Damien Chevallier revealed his fraud, sent him to prison, collapsed his gallery, and I felt empty. Revenge had been satisfying, but not fulfilling. One day I received a letter. From Damien, handwritten, from prison. "Alessia, I'm writing to congratulate you. You've achieved everything you wanted. Fame, recognition, vindication. Your paintings hang in the Louvre. Mine hang in police evidence rooms. You were right. I underestimated you. I thought of you as a tool, a skilled forger to facilitate my business. I never saw you as an artist. That was my mistake, and I've paid for it. But I want you to know, I never lied about one thing. Your technical mastery is the best I've ever seen. Better than any forger in history. You could have made billions if you'd stayed in that world. But you chose honesty, authenticity, art over money. I respect that, even if it destroyed me. There's one thing I want to ask. Will you paint something for me? Not a forgery, not a commission, just something of yours. Your choice, your voice. I want to own one real Alessia Moretti original. Not to sell, just to have, to remind me of what I lost by not seeing your talent for what it really was. I can't pay you. I have nothing, but if you'd grant this request, I'd be grateful. Damien. I read the letter 3 times. Part of me wanted to throw it away. Ignore him. Let him rot. But another part of me, the part that understood regret, redemption, and second chances, considered it. I thought about what my mother said. Both are yours. I thought about Sophia Benedetti. Discover your own voice. I thought about my years as a ghost, creating beauty in other people's names, and I decided I painted something for Damien. Not a forgery, not a historical pastiche. A true Alessia Moretti original. The painting showed 2 figures. One was me, painting in the style of Vermeer, precise, controlled, beautiful. The other was me, painting in wild, expressionistic strokes, chaotic, honest, raw. And in the center, the 2 paintings merged into a single image that was neither style but something new. I called it The Forger's Gift. I sent it to Damien's prison, with a note. Damien, you were wrong about one thing. I was always a real artist, even when I was forging, even when I was lost, even when I couldn't see it myself. You taught me technique, the market, the value of mastery. For that, I'm grateful. You also taught me what I didn't want to be, someone who valued money over truth. For that, I'm also grateful. This painting is for you, not because I forgive you, but because I understand you. You saw art as a commodity. I see it as truth, We were always going to end up on opposite sides. Thank you for underestimating me. It forced me to prove you wrong, Alessia. I'm 42 now, living in Florence. My studio has north-facing windows and blank canvases and pigments I mix myself from historical recipes. I paint every day. Sometimes in historical styles, commissions from collectors who want an Alessia Moretti Vermeer or an Alessia Moretti Caravaggio, but always with honest attribution, always with my signature, and sometimes in my own style. The Ghost series continues. Dark, psychological, questions about truth and beauty, original and copy, real and fake. Last month, I received a letter from Sofia Benedetti, the critic who told me I wasn't an artist yet 15 years ago. Alessia, I saw your Guggenheim retrospective. It was extraordinary. You found your voice, not by abandoning technique, but by transcending it. You're no longer copying other artists. You're in conversation with them. That's what great art does. I want to apologize for my words in 2015. I told you that you weren't an artist. I was wrong. You were always an artist. You just needed time to discover what that meant. Congratulations on becoming yourself. Sophia, I framed that letter. Hung it in my studio, next to my diploma from the academia, next to a photograph of my first forgery, next to a catalog from my Christie's auction, reminders of the journey, from student to forger to ghost to artist. Last week I visited Damien in prison. It was strange seeing him in prison clothes, the confident gallerist reduced to an inmate. He'd aged, lost weight, but his eyes still had that sharp intelligence. Thank you for the painting, he said. It's the most valuable thing I own. Ironically. You're welcome. You know what's funny? I was right and wrong at the same time. I said you'd never be a real artist, but you became one by proving me wrong. So maybe I helped, in the worst possible way. I smiled. Maybe. What will you do next? Keep painting. That's all I've ever wanted to do. Any more forgeries? Only if someone wants a contemporary work in a historical style. With full disclosure. Honest attribution. I'll never hide again, he nodded. You were always better than me, Alessia. I just couldn't see it. I saw a tool. You were an artist all along. We see what we're looking for. What did you see in me? A warning of what I could become if I valued money over truth. He laughed. Bitter, but genuine. At least I was useful for something. I left the prison and walked through Paris, past the Louvre, where my Vermeer hung with the label. Alessia Moretti, B. 1982, woman reading a letter, 2015, oil on canvas, in the style of Johannes Vermeer, 1632-1675. Past the closed gallery that once bore Damien's name, now empty, a ghost of his ambition, and I thought, this is the price of deception. Not punishment, not prison, but erasure, becoming a ghost. I'd been a ghost too, for years, creating beauty that lived in other names. But I'd found my way back, to truth, to authenticity, to my own voice. And now, when I paint, I sign every canvas the same way. Alessia Moretti, between forgery and truth. I choose truth. Game over. I won.